I'm a nobody from nowhere that ain't never done nothing. That's what I am. An old head. These young coaches, I tell you what, I can't figure these jokers out. They got a backpack on and tight something. I don't know what they're doing. They're getting on my nerves, I can tell you that. I know what ain't in the backpack. A string and a let me paint that line for you. That ain't in there. That's for sure. I had a kid the other day. He said, "Hey, Coach, didn't Christopher Columbus write the Pledge of Allegiance?" I said he sure did. He also played quarterback for the 1985 Chicago Bears. He said, "Bet." That happened. Sun Coaches, Season 6, where coaches come and tell their stories. Some of them are funny. Some of them is going to help you in your coaching journey. Not everybody has a funny story, but everybody has a story. Hope you enjoy Sun Coaches, brought to you by Titan Sensor. Sun Coaches is proud to partner with Titan Sensor for Season 6 and 7. Titan is made in the USA, proudly founded and based in Texas. When you connect with Titan, you are not alone. You can collaborate and share templates with other coaches across the country to build reports and foster competition. Used by programs such as State 6A Georgia State champion Grayson High School, Titan can tailor a package to fit your needs. The eye in the sky never lies. Improve your team's performance with Titan. Welcome to Sun Coaches Podcast, Season 6, and I am delighted to be joined by the head coach at Social Circle, Coach Rob Patton. Thanks for being on with me.
Thank you for having me, Coach.
Well, Coach, tell us where you grew up and went to high school.
So I grew up in Grayson, Georgia. So, grew up and actually, Grayson High School wasn't opened up until I was in the 8th grade. So I played in the Little League Park over there at South Gwinnett. My whole family, grandparents, parents, brother, all went to South Gwinnett. And then Coach Conn, who was the head coach, got the job at Grayson, was actually my 6th grade teacher, my health and PE teacher in a middle school. So, I was pretty sold on, I'm a South Gwinnett guy. My brother was on the team at that point. He was a junior. I was going to go to South Gwinnett. And then when Coach Conn got that job, I just loved that guy so much. And he'd meant a lot to me as a coach and a teacher. So whenever he got that job at Grayson, then I was districted for Grayson. So I was all on board at that point to be a Grayson Ram. So, played high school ball there for 4 years at Grayson. And then after I graduated college, ended up coming back and started working there. That was my first job.
So your first 4 years, like you went there when it opened?
Yes, sir. So I was actually in 8th grade the first year it opened, when they played a non-region schedule. And then, I started there that second year Grayson was open, was my 9th grade year.
Okay, so that's pretty cool. You were there from the very beginning then, more or less.
Yeah, ball boy the first year and then playing the second year. So.
Oh, that's awesome. So did you play anything other than football?
I did track, but I was never a varsity track athlete.
I got you. So you were just doing it to have something else to do, to stay ready for football.
Staying ready for football and, track practice was probably easier than off-season football workout. So.
So there was that.
There you go.
So did you have an opportunity to play college ball anywhere, or did you just go on to go to school?
I did not. I just went on to school. I was a very, very average high school football player.
So where did you go to college?
I went to Georgia College in Milledgeville.
And did you always know you were going to teach and coach, or did you go to school to do something else and wander off into the wrong line?
I knew I wanted to coach. My original plan going in was to get an accounting degree and then, be a lay coach. And then after that, first year of college, I was like, no, this isn't it. I just need to get into it full time. So switched that major then and didn't look back.
Awesome. So your first job out of college was at Grayson?
Yes, sir. So I started there in 2010. So Grayson looked a lot different than it did when I was in high school already in that 4-year change. So started out there as basically an assistant to our defensive coordinator at that time, Robert Andrews, and kind of helped him out in the secondary and kind of just tried to learn and soak everything in. And, I was there for the next 8 years. So
So over those 8 years, what all did you do? I mean, like, what were all of your positions and responsibilities and things like that? You started out, helping at the lower levels. What all did you? As you moved
So,
up, what did you do?
so starting out in 2010, I was really just, our defensive coordinator was the defensive backs coach, and I was just kind of his assistant, helping out with whatever he needed and really just trying to learn. And so, I'd played inside linebacker, but and I'm thankful that Coach Conn kind of put me there in the secondary so I could learn, the entire defense and how it works that way. So helped out with him that first year in the secondary in 2011. He kind of turned over the corners to me, and that was kind of my position in 11. 2012, did that again, working with the corners. And then 2013, had the whole secondary to myself. And, we had a bit of a down year. I probably really wasn't even ready for it, being completely honest. And then that next year, he brought in Coach Steve Brooks, who's been a mentor to me ever since that first day I met him, and kind of worked with him again with the secondary that following year. And then after that one, Coach Gregory, who was our defensive coordinator at the time, took a head job, and then I became the defensive coordinator in 2015.
Awesome. So basically worked your way up the old-fashioned way.
Yes, sir.
Oh, that's awesome. So your years at Grayson, what was it like coaching at the place where you actually graduated from? Was that like dream come true, what you always wanted to do, or it just, was different? Or, I mean, was it cool to getting to do that? A lot of people enjoy going back to where they went to high school. I've never done it. I just know that a lot of people, that's what they like to do.
I loved it. I got to coach some guys that I played with, little brothers and stuff like that, and some kids that I'd known growing up. But just really getting to work with a lot of the guys that had coached me, and they had put a lot of trust in me early on, since they, knew me from growing up and being young over there. And, I think that really helped fast track me, to get to a coordinator spot pretty fast, just because I'd already, known Coach Conn my entire life. But it was just a great experience getting to work with the guys, that had coached me, and learning from those guys. And we had a lot of great guys on that staff, a lot of guys that have gone on to be, successful head coaches. But no, it was a great experience.
So after those 8 years at Grayson, where did you go?
So I was there, I guess, 15, 16, and 17. I was the defensive coordinator. So my first 3 years there as defense coordinator, we had a different head coach every year. So head coach Conn, I was there for his last year in 15 before he went to Clemson, and then got to work for Coach Heron there in 16 during that state championship year, and then for Coach Honeycutt in 17. And after that, Coach Gregory, who was another guy that's been a huge mentor to me since I got into coaching. He'd been our defensive line coach when I first got there, and I replaced him when he left. He was our defensive coordinator before I was, and he had taken the job at Collins Hill. And I went there in 18 and 19. So I was there with him at Collins Hill for 2 years.
Oh, so that's pretty awesome. So you just stayed with the same group, more or less.
Yeah, sir. Stayed with that same little tree.
Yeah, I worked for Michael Pollock at Americas. I was his defensive coordinator when he was the head coach at Americas, and I know he was on that staff with Coach Heron.
He's a great dude. Good, really good football coach.
Very intelligent guy. And now he's out with Prime. That's
right. Now he's getting on out there in Colorado.
Yeah, when he got promoted this past off season, he was like, "Hey, Lamb, I finally have a job where I can give you your dream job." And I was like, "Really? What's that?" And he was like, "The JV left-footed kicking coach." And I was like, "Sweet."
Oh, goodness. So, that's a funny dude.
He's always, we've always kind of kept up with each other and good friends and stuff like that. So that's cool. Every time I get to reach out and talk to him, and I know he was up there, and I'd had Coach Heron on during the Legend Series, and Cut's a good friend of mine too. So all those guys are great guys. And I was supposed to have Coach Gregory on, and we had like a really bad storm come through, and we had one night, like when we had it scheduled or whatever, and I've had to reschedule it with him. We just haven't been able to meet back up to redo the podcast, but I'm going to get him on here because I know he's got a lot of great stories. And
oh yeah, he's full of them. But he's a great football coach and a good man.
He's going to do a good job at Commerce, so that's going to be fun to watch as well. So So after your 2 years at Collins Hill, where did you parlay that into?
So that's when I got on at Social Circle. So I started at Social Circle the first week of March in 2020. So I was there for
COVID.
5 days, and yes, sir. I was there for 5 days, Monday through Friday, and then they shut the school down and didn't see everybody till midway through the summer.
Sweet. You're
So that
like,
was
awesome.
definitely a unique experience as a first time head coach. But I mean, I'll be honest with you, we had a newborn baby at the time, so got to spend a lot of time at home, and we were kind of behind getting in over there at Social Circle, but I like to think the pandemic kind of set everybody else back a little bit to kind of help us catch up. So,
Well, everything works out. I mean, you got to spend time at home with the baby and with your wife, and and like you said, everybody was in the same boat.
right.
So I mean, it you know, wasn't like you were the only ones being affected. So
No doubt, no doubt.
So that makes it a little bit easier to deal with. And Social Circle's a very unique situation. I remember back in the 90s when I was coaching at Aquinas, we used to play Social Circle, and they were, city school and real small school back then. And the growth has really gone out toward y'all's way now.
It's making its way out there. I mean, they're building that new. They've got a few data centers out here with Facebook, but it's starting to take off with the industry. That Rivian plant's supposed to be getting built, so that'll probably bring a lot more people out this way. But we're still sitting there in that right above, right under 600, with our enrollment. So we're in Single A Division I, but been in Gwinnett County and big schools my entire career, but I really enjoy being in a smaller town, smaller environment. So it's been a great move for me and my family.
So when you came in and took over as the head coach, and they hadn't really been traditionally very successful, what did you come in and sell as your program, your values, what your vision was for the football program at Social Circle?
Our biggest thing was, and we've talked about it, we hadn't changed our core values in the last 6 years. It was just, focus on what we can do. We didn't talk about wins and losses, didn't talk about championships at the beginning, just talked about every day in the weight room, starting out there, getting better, getting stronger, getting mentally tougher, physically tougher. And then every day at practice, just, I know it's cliche, but just whatever we're working on, those same fundamentals, just focus on it and get better. And so, each year we've made a little bit of step right there in the right direction. So now I think we've got it to where, we've got a team full of kids that are bought in and believe in what we're doing. So it's been fun to be a part of.
So would you say the weight room was the first thing you decided you need to go in and
Definitely,
make sure
definitely.
you sell them on that?
Definitely. So our strength coach, he actually came with me from Collins Hill. His name's Nate Etheridge, and he'd moved down. He started at Collins Hill the same year I did. And he'd been a head wrestling coach in Michigan and a defensive coordinator at a small school about the same size as Social Circle. And so, he was the head wrestling coach at Collins Hill, and he, thankfully came out there to Social Circle with me, and he's run our weight room ever since we've been there, and has done a phenomenal job because, it was one of those things. We got there for that first workout after COVID, and I'll be honest with you, we had 2 kids that could bench press 135 at that point. And one of them was his son that came over with us. So, had a long way to go, but I mean, our kids have, they bought in. We've got tough kids, it's just about pushing them daily, and, it's been fun watching them grow.
So how many coaches were you able to bring with you that first time?
That first year, I was able to bring in Coach Etheridge. He was our strength coach and a defensive coordinator. I brought in a guy that had worked with a mentor of mine, a guy that had worked with Steve Brooks, and his name was Jimmy Jarrett. He'd been the OC at Loganville, and he was with us for the first 4 years. He actually retired the year before last, but did a phenomenal job for us. And then, so those were the guys we brought in. I had a few other lay coaches come with me. Randy Holland, I don't know if you've ever worked with him, but he's been all over the place. And he came with us over from Collins Hill, another guy that's been a great mentor to me. And also Coach Jarrett's son, AJ Jarrett, he'd been a GA on staff at Auburn under Malzahn, and he was a really good football coach. Unfortunately, he got out of it. He's making real money now and got out of teaching, but no, we were able to bring in a good staff, and the guys that were already on board, bought into what we were doing, and a lot of those guys are still on staff with us today. So
So how much different was it after COVID for you to actually have a spring practice and get into a full year of real off season as opposed to that nonsense that going in, with all the other changes that were going on during that time?
I think it made us, just having a full off season just made us a lot more competitive for 4 quarters. I think that first year, and I love those kids and they did a great job, but without that off season and putting in that time and putting in that effort, and putting in that investment, you know, finishing out football games, I think got a lot better as we got the whole thing going.
So now you're going into year, what, 6, 7?
Going into year 6 right now.
Year 6, and you've had, so that'd be 5 different springs. How have you adjusted the way you do spring, or have you adjusted the way you do spring since the beginning?
Definitely have. So, majority of our skill kids, we hadn't gotten back until, so we do spring the last 2 weeks possible, just because our baseball teams had a lot of success. And we've usually, now this year, we only had 2 guys that were on the baseball team that were varsity guys. So we didn't lose as much there, but pretty much all of our skill kids run track and a lot of them qualify. So, really focus on fundamentals that first week and focus on the line of scrimmage, because we don't have many of our receivers and running backs and DBs out there, and then just go heavy into it. Now, the spring game's always kind of fickle because it's, the kids get excited for a spring game. It's just tough getting ready for it. But everybody in single A is in that same boat, because everybody's got kids that run track and qualify and, stuff like that. So we have done spring games each year. I think 2 years ago, when our quarterback and our backup quarterback were all baseball players, and I knew we wouldn't have them, we just did an inter squad one of those years. But every other year we've done a spring scrimmage against somebody locally. So, hadn't always had success in our spring scrimmages, but it's still good just for the excitement and getting kids out there,
And this practice
somebody else.
Yeah, and this practice with uniforms on, really,
It is.
I mean, it's good for them to have some. They want to hit somebody else, but it's good for them to do that, and it's good that we have that opportunity to do that now too. Because used to, you would have to try to manufacture ways to the red and white game or
right.
whatever.
Steaks and hot dogs for the winners.
Yeah, we're gonna. Hey, bring some soap and we'll let you in for free, or
right.
some laundry detergent or whatever it was, to try to get people, excited to come watch an inter squad game. It's a whole lot easier to get them to bring you some Dawn and some Tide soap powder if you're playing somebody else.
No doubt.
And we definitely need that. So this year, who did y'all play this year?
So we played Commerce this year.
Oh, my gosh. So you're Coach Gregory. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, and we actually played him last spring, too, whenever he was up at Gordon Central. So, love that guy. Got all the respect in the world for him. And, he definitely helped me to get to where I'm at today. But so we played them, and, it was a tight game. We got a new quarterback, and I want to say third play of the game, we threw a pick 6, and then we gave up a deep ball. So we were down 14-0 just like that. And, fought our way back and tied it up there right before halftime, and gave up another deep ball. So went down 21-7 and ended up finishing up 28-14 at the end of third quarter. And then we, turned off the clock and, played a bunch of ninth graders and rising ninth graders and stuff like that in the fourth quarter. So, it was a learning experience for us. I hate giving up deep balls, but I'd rather do it in a game that doesn't count than a real one. So.
Well, you hit on something there that I think is real important, especially for younger head coaches out there, is when you're doing OTAs and when you're doing spring games and when you're doing 7-on-7s, is getting with people that you trust and because you trust and them. They're not going to turn it into something that's not.
Right.
And, the rules are going to be this is what we're doing, this is how we're going to structure it, this is the way we're going to set it up. Because sometimes you get somebody over there that turns into JoJo, that I'm going to win the World Series of spring game, OTA, blah, 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 whatever it is, and then it turns into a mess, and that's not really what it's supposed to be.
No doubt.
And that just doesn't help anybody, in my opinion. If we're out there playing, you want to win, but what are you really out there trying to do? So that's awesome that you have that relationship with Coach Gregory, where y'all can get together and somebody you trust and somebody you know is going to respect the parameters that y'all set forth for your scrimmages and things like that. Do you try to do the same thing with OTAs that you choose to go to and things like that?
Yes, sir. So we've hosted one in June ever since I've been there. And so, we bring up Walnut Groves come every year, and that's Coach Andrews, who was the first DC, that guy that I worked under at Grayson. And, like that guy put so many hours into training me, that whole first summer. I didn't play college football. I was stepping into a program I had no business coaching in yet, but, met with me for a couple hours every day in June and July after every workout and kind of taught me the defense. So those guys, they've come over every year. East Side's come over. They're down the road from us, and Coach Patton does a great job. And, I didn't know him until we started doing the OTAs, but I know a lot of guys that have worked for him, and he's a great guy, does a good job, and they've got a really talented football team. So, when we go against them that first morning period in June, we can tell our guys, it don't matter if, we make it to a state championship. We're not going to see a team as talented and as big and as fast as this all year. So buckle up and get ready.
Yeah, especially when you're a smaller school and you're going against guys that like that, it's good to let them be exposed to that kind of, especially depth, because it is, at our level, it's just, that's the biggest thing. You got some dudes, you got some players, but they probably got 30 of them. You got
there's a little different in that second dude.
Yeah, that second dude is like, I will fire you and put you on the sideline, but stay real close because I'm probably putting you right back out.
Don't go too far.
Yeah.
Don't go sit down on the bench.
Yeah, I told one of mine today. I said, hey, man, I will fire you. Now, I'm probably going to rehire you very quickly, but I will make you come stand by me for a little bit. But, that's, I talked to another coach earlier on, and he was just talking about the difference in depth of, and you play some of the bigger schools, and you've coached at the bigger schools where they run 11 out on offense, 11 out on defense, a completely different 11 out on special teams, and then they're 2 deep or 3 deep at every, one of those units. And, we're out here going, hey man, when you get tired, we might take you off an extra point.
That's right. We'll just move you from the back and kick off return to the front line. So. Yeah. But you're staying out there.
Yeah, you're not coming off the field. Why do I have to condition so much in the summer, Coach? We got to get you in shape, baby. You ain't coming off the field.
No doubt.
And kids these days, they don't, I mean, our kids do. Your kids do. The smaller schools, they get it because, kids may say they don't want to come off the field, but then they get out there and they're like, man, I'm tired.
Oh, yeah.
Tapping their helmet. Nah, what's wrong with you? You can't come out.
Definitely say we picked up the conditioning a lot more a year or two. I definitely underestimated that and made that mistake year one. It's a different ball game, not rotating those same 11 back and forth except for the quarterback. So,
well, kind of segueing into the summer, what are some things that you transitioned and changed over the 6 years the way you do summer? I know, like, we stay on the traditional Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday model. I've heard people are going to the Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday deal. Some people still in June just do 3 days a week. How do you guys do it at Social Circle?
We do it 3 days a week in June, and then we go to 4 in July. So in June, we go Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, and then try and give them, every Friday off. We've got one ninth grade 7-on-7, which really for us is a JV 7-on-7 in June. But outside of that, our varsity guys have all Friday, Saturday, Sunday off. We got so many kids that play basketball all weekend or baseball tournaments all weekend. We've got a big wrestling program, so they wrestle at night during the week. So we pretty much do everything 8 to 11 in the morning in June. Occasionally on Wednesdays, we'll have some local teams come over and we'll throw in the morning, right after workouts. But we keep afternoons and evenings and weekends open for them to do everything because we got, they're getting pulled in so many different directions during that month. And then once July hits, we go to football season. We start going Monday through Thursday.
Absolutely. Well, what were some of the challenges of stepping into the head coach? And I mean, besides COVID, let's skip that part. But what were just some things that transitioning into being a head coach that, I mean, the X's and O's part's pretty easy. What were some of the other things that maybe you were like, oh man, this is not at all what I expected? Was there anything that you were ill prepared for, or it wasn't exactly what you thought it was going to be, or did all of the mentors you had do a pretty good job of getting you ready for everything that happened? Now I know that's kind of a not a fair question because you're
Right.
you're never really ready. I mean, a lot of the stuff you can't be ready. I mean, you have to do it to be able to do it. But what are some of the challenging things you've had to deal with is making that transition from coordinator to being the one in the big chair?
One of the biggest ones early on was just learning how to share athletes, because we had so many kids at a big 7A school. We'd have a few kids that would run track and a couple that would play basketball, but the majority of our kids were, football year round kind of guys. And so getting used to that side of it and, not worried about having the entire offense and defensive end for that, first week of 7-on-7 at UGA or wherever in June. That really doesn't matter in the grand scheme of things. We just want to see our kids compete. So really just dialing back on that end, just because we've got so many kids that are doing different sports. And I love them playing different sports. I really do. I think it puts them, especially doing a sport that they're not as good at, to where they do have to go through that adversity factor, and build that mental toughness. But, there's probably only a handful of kids on our team that are just football only. The majority of them are 2-sport, and a lot of them are still 3-sport. So that was a big part. And then just getting into scheduling, that was a big one because, we had a few years where we only had a 4-team region. So trying to fill out that big schedule part, learning about reclassification, that really was never a big deal in Gwinnett because it was either you're going to face this handful of teams, you're going to face that one, versus, feels like every 2 years we got a completely new region since I've been at Social Circle. So, things that you don't think of, but, luckily I've got a great group of guys that, are a phone call away and can always give great advice and help me out. So.
Yeah, I remember in the early 2000s, I was at Lithia Springs, and we had a really, really good basketball team, a great basketball coach. And I remember going to the first basketball game, and I was like, good Lord, who are these kids? Where did they come from? And why have I never seen them on the football field? And they're like, well, they're basketball players. And I'm like, yeah, and we might have had 1 or 2 kids that played football that played basketball. But there was a bunch of those kids. I mean, they were 6'5", 6'6", 6'7". I mean, they were like dude basketball players. And I was like, where did these guys come from? And I mean, it was just, it was a big school, and I was in the gym all day, and those kids just didn't have PE. They were taking academic classes, and I was like, and I taught 10th grade. I had health, so I had 10th graders pretty much all day. I was like, man, these dudes, we can't get them on a football field. And they're like, Coach, they are real basketball players. And I was like, man, please, these jokers right here. And I mean, I was from South Georgia. I wasn't used to, I was used to everybody playing everything, regardless of the size of the school.
Right.
And I couldn't imagine. I've told people this a million times. I couldn't imagine being at Collins Hill where y'all got 3,000-4,000 kids at a school. I'm like, that blows my mind, being at places that are that big. And I imagine, that is weird, going from somewhere that massive to somewhere where, and you've probably had to explain this to people too. You probably don't know all 600 kids at your school, but you probably recognize most of their faces.
No, the majority of, definitely more than at a bigger school. So now, luckily for us, our AD does Coach Hargrove. He does a great job of, kind of emphasizing and pushing kids to play multiple sports. And, we had a lot of luck, especially those first 2 years I was there. We had a really good basketball team that made a couple of deep runs, and we were able to get a few of those kids out that made a huge difference for us in football. So getting out, throughout all of our sports, wrestling, basketball, baseball, everybody does a good job of sharing the athletes. So that's been a big boost for us.
We all have definitely been trending upward football wise over the last several years, getting better every year. Is that pretty much what you expected? I mean, because like you said, you started Ground zero, you had two guys that could bench press 135 pounds, and now you guys are perennial playoff contenders and getting deeper and deeper in the playoffs. I mean, is that pretty much how you envision this thing going?
Yes, sir. I mean, I think, and I mean, you've been in a bunch of small schools before. I think there's, we have classes where it's like, this group is special, you know what I mean, across the board. And then we got some classes that have, a couple good skill kids, but might only have one lineman in the class. And then we got a lineman or a class that's got 5 or 6 linemen, but doesn't have many skill kids. So it's just, just getting that buy-in from all of them and, just working those pieces where, hey, we gotta put a freshman in there. We got to play these sophomores and, but I think if we can continue to get the kids out from within the school, I think we can continue to be competitive and keep getting better. So,
Yeah, I think some of the best coaches that you ever find are the guys that coach in the smaller classifications because what you got is what you got. Coach, I don't, he can't play there. Well, I got bad news for you, Jack.
yeah, he's got to.
He's got to because that's who we got. So we've got to figure out how to coach him up and get him to where he can play and put him in a position where he can be successful. So
Right.
it might not be asking him to down block, the defensive end. We may have to put him somewhere else, but we've got to find somewhere for him to get
He's
on the
going to be on the
field.
field.
Yeah, he's going to
He's
be
going to
out
be on
there.
the field.
So we got to find something for him to do. And that's not saying that there aren't great coaches at every classification, but you've coached at the biggest of the big and now the smallest of the small. And I think you can attest to that when you're at the smallest of the small, you got to get a little bit creative with how you do things.
Oh, definitely, definitely. I mean, even on special teams and stuff like that, to where you don't have that group of kids that are just right there about to be, that are going to be your guys next year. So you got to find a way to get those guys in shape and, just maneuver around that chart and try and put them in the best spot to be successful. So, but I mean, I really enjoy it. And, I really like and I get frustrated during the week. We might have 1 week we're facing the single wing, the next week the wing tee, then the spread option, back with the single wing. And,
Yeah.
we might go 7 weeks where we don't do a 7-on-7 period on defense,
Yeah.
then come out in the playoffs and they're going to be an empty all game,
Yeah.
running quick screen. So get ready.
And then you're watching college football on Saturday and you watch somebody run something crazy and you're like, yeah, we're going to see that next week.
Here it comes.
Because that's definitely happening in the lower classifications.
Here it comes.
Absolutely. They're probably going to change their whole offense to that this week. And it happens and people think we're making the stuff up and we're like, no, that's a thing. It's absolutely a thing. But so what are you looking at this year, Coach? How do the Indians look this year up there at Social Circle? Them Redskins.
Oh yeah, the Redskins. But yeah, I mean we've got a lot of linemen coming back, so I think that'll be our strength. And then I think we've got some kids that are some skill kids that are going to be very talented. We just gotta mature and gotta grow up there. So put a big emphasis on that. Luckily in the summer with just helmets on, you can put a big emphasis on that. But I'm excited to see how our line of scrimmage does next week in padded camp when we go against some bigger schools and compete against some guys with a lot of size and a lot of speed. But I'm excited about our chances for this year.
Well, what's your region look like now? You said it changes a lot. Who all's in y'all's region now?
So right now it's us and then Lamar County, Putnam County, Monticello, McNair, Towers, and Utopian Academy.
Yeah, because y'all are all right there near each other. Good Lord. It's like
All
the
over the board.
GHSA doesn't own a map. I mean, there is Social Circle
really,
and Lamar County ain't nowhere near each other.
It's really not too bad. I mean, it's about an hour and 5 to 10 minutes. It's not crazy. But it's either that or get thrown in with North Georgia where it might be an hour and 45-minute drive. So there's just not that many single A schools that close by us.
Yeah, that's true, I guess. Because they could kick you down to like Hancock and Warren and GMC and
Warren's in Division II, so we're in that single A Division I. So,
okay.
Back my
That's right.
first couple of years, we were in there with Green and who was it? Green and Lincoln County, Washington Wilkes and Commerce. But now, since they did that reclassification, but our region's a good mix. It's there haven't been many blowouts in our region. Everybody's very competitive with each other. A lot of close ball games. So.
Well, another thing too is you got a bunch of good dudes coaching at those schools. Ashley Henderson's a great dude.
He is.
Etheridge at Lamar County is a great dude. All the guys that you're having to deal with in your region are good dudes. So that makes it a great region, good people to deal with. And you want to cave their heads in when you play them on Friday
no
nights.
No doubt.
They're good people.
They are. They've been great guys to work with. So
that's awesome. So what are some things about, since you've over the past 6 years, you're starting to become a wily veteran head coach now and one of the elder statesmen of your region. What are some of the things you've noticed that have changed over the past 6 years with high school football that you're not the biggest fan of, or things you like, or, just things that have changed that you're like, okay, this could be different?
Everybody's going to talk. The transfer thing hasn't really affected us very much. I know that's a big problem in a lot of areas. We got a lot of kids whose parents went to social circle, grandparents went to social circle, great grandparents went there. So we've got a community, and now it makes for a great atmosphere on Friday nights because that's one thing about social circle. It doesn't matter if it's a football game on a Friday night or a middle school game on a Wednesday or a middle school girls soccer game. The people are pretty much going to be there. There's not a whole lot going on in town. So it makes for a good atmosphere there. But as far as I think the biggest thing would be the transfer stuff, just as far as elsewhere in the state. I know that's a major issue with a lot of people.
Yeah, I know that atmosphere over there is great. Like I said, when I coached at Aquinas, we played back in the late 90s. We would play social circle, and the stands would be packed. And it was when Coach Reeves was the head coach over there. Old Coach Reeves, not young Coach Reeves. And
he was on staff with us for a couple of years.
Yeah, and Coach Reeves would be up there, wearing his boots, and there would be people up there in the stands. It'd be packed, and two of the most vicious hits I ever saw was in the same game. They were both on punts, and the social circle guy got the better end of it because, we wiped out the guy from social circle, and everybody was, ooh. Well, when it was time for social circle to punt to Aquinas, they hit that child so hard, he walked off to the social circle sideline, and they felt so sorry for him, they just let him stay over there until he didn't know where he got.
Give him bad eyes.
He got knocked out. It was awful. And everybody was, it was one of those, ooh, it was bad. And I was filming. I was up in the press box and with a camcorder. That's how long ago that was. But, man, there was some licks passed in those games. And I remember I coached baseball too. So we go to the baseball games, and that place, the baseball part would be packed too. Chad Kitchens was the baseball coach back then, and it would be, man, there'd be people up and down the side of the fence watching baseball games, and old timers and mamas and daddies from everywhere, just very supportive of that program, that community. It was pretty neat. And there was a cool place to eat there too, the Blue Willow Inn, I think it was called.
Oh yeah, it's supposed to be opening back up. I hadn't seen it open up yet though, so just waiting on it.
Oh, it's been closed?
Yes, sir. So it closed down, I think, right around the pandemic.
Oh man, that place was fantastic. That was great place to eat. Man, that's awesome. Well, Coach, I sure do appreciate you coming on and sharing your story with us, and the journey that you've taken from starting out as the second class at Grayson and working your way up from being a assistant secondary coach all the way up to being a head coach. And I can't wait to see what the Redskins have going for them. You definitely have that program moving up and every year getting better. And I sure do appreciate you coming on and sharing your story.
Yes, sir. Thank you for having me, Coach.
Thanks, Coach.